Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Callum Armstrong for a discussion on digital marketing, bad or good. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Callum, welcome to the show.
Bruce, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as I mentioned to you, your presence here means that on this podcast, I have now interviewed people from every populated continent on the planet. So
Fantastic.
it's nice to have someone from New Zealand. I will not ask you what is going to happen tomorrow. That should be a secret. And we'll get right to it. Take a moment or two and please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Great, thank you. My name's Callum, as you know. I am a marketing coach, originally a content marketer. I've built a few different companies, and we're also working on a charity to help make environmental conservation mainstream called Conservation Amplified. I live with one foot in the business world and one foot in the environmental space. But in the business world, I am primarily a marketing specialist. So I focus on helping B2B service businesses, companies that solve problems for other companies, to attract their ideal clients and grow their business. I'm really excited to talk about when marketing might not be the right fit to invest in today.
Thank you for that. That was actually going to be my first question, because the title is Digital Marketing, Bad or Good. Usually it would be good or bad, but I like the fact that you start with the negative. So, but let's first define what we're talking about. What is digital marketing and how does it differ from regular marketing? Analog marketing.
Yeah. Well, good question. The digital marketing, we can typically think of any way of attracting attention, awareness, interest, and leads to turn into customers that comes from the online space. So a billboard would be offline, a newspaper advert would be offline, a Google ad or a piece of content or a webinar or this podcast would be digital. So yeah, digital marketing is online, basically, and we do marketing to attract leads. If you think about selling, we go out and talk to people and try to get leads and sales and customers, but it's very much one-on-one. Digital marketing is the activities we do to bring leads to inquiring with us so that we can then turn them into customers rather than doing it all outbound.
Good. Now, why would digital marketing be bad?
It's really about finding the right chapter in your business to do it. And if you invest in digital marketing at chapter 1 and the right time is chapter 5, then you might be focusing on the wrong things and investing resources into the wrong priorities. So what I see is a lot of companies that are quite small, or they're early stage, or they haven't got the foundations of their digital marketing set up right. And they start pouring time and money into their digital marketing without completely understanding their customers' needs or without having the right foundation for their business set up to grow from. And so it means that maybe their message isn't clear. Maybe their message doesn't convert. Maybe they've got a good message, but when people land on their website or land on however they're generating leads, it's just not compelling or it doesn't work properly. And so in these instances, it's not the best use of your resource and you're better off just talking directly to your customers and serving them. I firmly believe that we should really understand our customers' needs and use digital marketing as a way to amplify our ability to get more. And so, yeah, if you're in that stage, it's it's easy to create a lot of noise and volume. And as I'm sure you're aware, Bruce, in the online space, there's just so much noise. There's so many people trying to get your attention. And if you're not really clear on who you're solving a problem for, the specific problem you're solving, and how you're going to get in front of those people, then quite often it's just a waste of resource.
You've reminded me of something that happened here in the 1990s. And I think it was written up in some business books, so you may have heard of it. America Online, AOL, sent out discs to everyone in the United States. You would get 2 or 3 discs a week, and each one would offer you, I don't remember, let's say 5 hours of free online service. You just had to create an account. So what did everybody do? They'd use up their 5 hours, throw the disk away, get out another disk. Well, AOL system crashed, and they couldn't honor the commitment. And the people who paid were very upset, and there was a class action lawsuit. But my point is this: the marketers took over, and they did a fabulous job because they got new people to sign up. They didn't get them to pay, but they got them to sign up. But the technology wasn't there yet. So nothing succeeds like success, and nothing fails like success. The old saying, be careful what you wish for. How can you avoid that system without doing the craziness that AOL did? But how can you make sure you are ready for success if your digital marketing campaign is successful and all of a sudden, literally the whole world is beating a path to your website?
I haven't really heard the name AOL come out in a long time. It's a bit before my time, but
Yeah.
it's really fascinating. I didn't know that, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
But to answer that, I'd love to just share 2 really quick frameworks,
please.
and that will answer the question so that you, the listener, can not just understand the advice we're sharing, but how that fits into your business.
Mhm.
So the first one is, why are you even doing marketing in the first place? Just a few minutes ago, I said that it's about generating leads that you can convert into customers. But we've got to think about, how does that fit into the journey of growing your business and solving your customers' problems? Now, if you think about it, you're fulfilling customer needs. That's what you're doing with your business. Whether you're a service, a software, a product, ultimately you're filling those customer needs. That's fulfillment. Before you can fulfill customer needs, you need to sell to them. And ideally, before you sell to them, you have marketing that converts them into customers. So marketing generates leads, which turns into sales, which turns into fulfillment. A lot of the times when marketing goes wrong is when the fulfillment of those customers' needs is not quite right. And so AOL, great example. A service business that doesn't have enough capacity to serve the new customers and the old customers miss out, great example. A product that hasn't been fully thought through, and as customers start buying it, they ask for refunds because it just isn't quite right, great example. So first thing is, get your fulfillment really good. If your customers are so happy, they tell their friends, they tell their family, they tell anyone they think is interested, you're onto a winner. Next up is, get your sales working. Get your sales processes on board. This doesn't have to be sleazy sales tactics. It just has to be something that works to convert customers, that solves their problems. If you generate leads before you have good sales and great fulfillment, then the resource you put into marketing is not worth that much. Now, once you've got that in place, you've got good fulfillment and good sales, you think, how do we get our marketing working right? And I've got a framework that I call the 4-step fishing method. Do you like fishing, or have you done much fishing?
I have never gone, well, that's not exactly true. I did go fishing once, sort of. I just wanted to get away from everyone. And I went into a store just to get a snack. And the owner of the store was a bait and tackle shop. He
Yeah.
why don't you go fishing? I said, I've never fished. I don't know how to fish. I wouldn't know how to put the worm on the hook. I wouldn't know how to get the hook out of the fish's mouth. And I certainly wouldn't know how to clean the fish. And he was laughing. He goes, well, at least you know what the tools are. So, but you would have to go quite some distance. So I said, what if you were to give me a fishing pole with no line? And I just sat there by the creek reading my book, and people would leave me alone. And he goes, it's a crazy idea, it might work. Well, it sort of worked, but didn't, because I don't remember if it was this park ranger or state police officer came by and said, excuse me, sir, you can't fish here. And I said, I'm not fishing, there's no line. And he goes, so I said, I thought it would, if I had the fishing pole out, people would leave me alone. It's not working. And he goes, put it down, that's fine. He checked, he said, yeah, it was a crazy idea, it didn't work. And then he said, you know what, I bet you've probably heard, and I don't remember the guy's name, from Joe, who was the owner of the bait and tackle shop. And I go, yeah, I came up with it, and he endorsed it. And he goes, yeah, you're both crazy. And that was fine. But no. So go ahead.
Oh, what
Tell,
a funny
tell,
story.
tell us your fish.
So here in New Zealand, we are surrounded by water, so there's a lot of fishing goes on. So I kind of revert to the fishing analogy. I love that story. So if you're going to go fishing,
Yeah.
no matter what type of fish you want to catch, there's 4 steps to getting a really good, consistent catch of fish. Obviously, a lot more details than this, but it relates really closely to digital marketing. The first stage is knowing what you want to catch. If you're going for one type of fish, say, I'm going to say some names of fish here, a snapper, you're going to use a much different type of reel, tackles, hooks, baits, lines. You're going to fish at different times in different places with different tactics to if you want to go for a kingfish, which is a much larger fish where you would put live fish on your hook. So different types of fish have different needs, different places, different timing. It's the same with your customers. One type of customer, one audience is going to have different problems that need solving than another type of customer. And so you need to understand their needs. You need to talk to them. You need to interview them. You need to think about past conversations. How can you serve them best? What do they need? What messages resonate with them? Once you've got that in place, the next stage and the second step in fishing is you need the tackle, you need the equipment. Now your rod without any line didn't quite work to keep people away, but it's the same with fishing. If you go for a fish that's only going to be caught in a net, like a mullet, you're going to have a different type of setup than a fish that needs big game tackle with, really heavy line and stuff. Same with your marketing. You need to set up a way of capturing those customers so that once you attract them to you, you can convert them into interested leads that you can turn into sales and customers that you fulfill. So that could look like a website. It could look like your analytics set up properly. It could look like your ad account set up. It could look like a content calendar in place. It could look like the right messaging, the right information on your contact pages. It could look like a form that actually sends to your email address and they get an automatic reply before you have the time to respond. It can take many shapes, but the second stage in fishing is to get the right equipment. Same with your marketing. The third stage is to go out and just go fishing, try it, put some bait on your line, cast it out, test your assumptions, test your hypotheses, see what works. But you accept when you go fishing that you're not going to be the best fisherman in the world the first time you try. So you try different things. You talk to other fishermen. You double down on what works, but you still test different stuff. It's the same with your marketing. You've understood your customers' needs in stage 1. You set up the right, I'm going to call it a funnel, but that's not the right word. The right way to capture those leads and the right way to warm them up and convince them you're the right fit to solve their problem. You've then gone out and you've tested you've tested your marketing method, and then you start adapting and improving. Now, a lot of businesses jump to one stage in this method or they don't get to the end. And it's usually done unknowingly, and this is where they fall short. So they might go out and start running ads without a website or with a terrible website, and they don't know their customers and they don't have the right stuff set up. They might know their customers, go out and advertise, but when they land on their sales page, it's just doesn't actually speak their language. They might go out and spend all their time putting a really fancy website together and then put no resource into marketing it and wonder why nobody's finding it with whatever way. That's like having a net that's sitting in an inch of water, wondering why the fish aren't jumping in and asking to be eaten. They might go out and run some Google ads and just leave that on autopilot with the same message for the next 18 months and then wonder why the performance drops. Well, that's because they're not testing and improving. So if we zoom out, there's two frameworks. You need to go fulfillment first, sales next, and then marketing afterwards. And once you're doing your marketing, you need to do the 4 steps of fishing. Identifying your customers' needs, who you're targeting and why, getting a really compelling way to capture them, going out and testing stuff and doubling down on what works. I think through that, you can really ask, where am I at? Should I be doing marketing? And if I'm doing marketing at a high level, where are the biggest roadblocks for me right now? And from there, you can then zoom in on what could be a good solution.
Figuring out what works, to use your analogy, is that the gutting and cleaning of the fish?
Um, I'd say it's getting the fish hooked on the line and pulling it into your boat or onto the land.
And when does the gutting and cleaning come in?
That would be once you've caught the fish. So that would be like onboarding your customer and then gutting and cleaning it, filleting it,
Okay.
and then maybe fulfillment could be cooking it up and eating it or having it as
Yeah,
sashimi.
I got you.
But I don't think the fish is going to come back for more.
Now, I don't believe this is a problem in New Zealand, but here we are a litigious society, so I want to make it clear that no one is advising that once you get a client, that you gut and clean them, leave them alone.
It's a good point.
Are we focused right now just on B2B? Or is it also true for B2C?
I think it's very universally applicable. This method or framework approach, way of looking at marketing is applicable to B2C. I find it is more applicable to B2B because in B2B, it's typically a higher value purchase with a longer purchasing time frame. And in consumer goods and consumer services, quite often purchases are driven much more on emotion, whereas B2B is often more on logic. Not always the case, but given that it's a longer purchase time frame and there's a lot more consideration of really definable pain points, it's typically better for B2B, but that doesn't mean it can't be done for B2C. And in fact, when I serve consumer business clients, I've used the same frameworks. I just adapt the way I present it and apply it.
Many, many years ago, I learned a very important lesson, and I'm not worried about telling you this story since you're in New Zealand. There was a very attractive student at the university from Australia, and trying to impress her with my vast knowledge of Australian history, my approach to her was to ask her if her ancestors were prisoners or turnkeys. And that did not go over well, to put it mildly. But everything you are saying, I mean, you're in New Zealand. As I've told you, I've had guests from around the world, from every continent. Is there any cultural component to digital marketing?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. If you're wanting to speak the language of your customers, that is a verbal language, linguistic. It can be dialect, it can be slang. We have some weird slang in New Zealand. I won't get into it now, but
We have some
but
here as well.
also, yeah, right, right. It's the hidden assumptions. It's yeah, it's all of that, and you only know these things, I guess, partly by being immersed in the culture, but also by talking to your customers, because just because the stereotypical culture of, say, New Zealand is one specific way of talking doesn't mean that the customer group we're targeting has any identification with that stereotype. They might completely have that identification, but they might not. But the more you can narrow down your target customers and the more you can understand about them, and I encourage people to go and have a chat with them, interview them, do what you need to do to properly, deeply understand your customers' needs, the better you can communicate with them. I think that goes across cultures, but I think it's also important as marketers to be flexible to, yeah, the cultural context. Because if I was targeting the same customers in New Zealand versus America versus Canada versus England, versus another country that speaks English, I don't know, what's another country? Um, say a Polynesian country like Samoa, it's going to be different, slightly different in every market, even though it's the same language we're speaking, and because of cultural context. But I think that comes down to the customers in that market, not the market in general.
That's the old joke, England and America are separated by a common language. But what about the platforms, the methods? Is there a difference in that respect? For example, you wouldn't use, and I'm making this up, you wouldn't use Instagram in New Zealand, you would in the United States, but you would use LinkedIn everywhere.
Man, you're full of good questions today. Um,
Thank you.
got me on the spot. So, platforms and methods, I'd say there's a few factors here. It comes down to who is your target customer, where do they hang out, where do they get their information. I'm probably not gonna talk about retirement planning on TikTok, no matter the market. It's just not where that audience would hang out.
Mhm.
Likewise, I'm not going to be selling um, career advice to preteens on LinkedIn. Not that I would do that, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure that that would be the place. But
I don't think they
there's
can be on
certain,
LinkedIn.
yeah, that's probably why. Yeah, that's a good point. But and I think yes, there might be a bit of difference in what works for the market. For example, here in New Zealand, we have about 5 million people. I'm not sure the latest population estimate in the United States, but it's significantly more. For search engine optimization here in New Zealand, for a lot of terms, unless it's very mainstream consumer focused, you just can't see the search volume when you look at SEO keyword keyword searches because there's just not enough volume to get a good data set. And so quite often when we're doing SEO work for clients in New Zealand and there's not enough data, we'll look to Australian data or American data. So I might say do SEO in New Zealand, but it's maybe not your top priority. Whereas if I was in America and I could see that there's so much more proven data behind our decisions, I might put more resource into that as a marketing leader. But I think the channels you use depends largely on what you as a business prioritize. There's three main types of media. There's paid media,
Mhm.
running ads, buying attention, earned media, earning attention, collaborating, and owned media, where you own the audience. And they all have different upsides and downsides. But knowing where you want your investment to go, how fast you need payoff, how long you want that payoff to last for, and how you want that to look for your business, your brand, and your reputation, I think tells you more about where you should advertise based on the market than maybe the audience itself.
It's interesting what you said about retirement planning and TikTok, and I don't recommend TikTok to anyone. I'm not recommending TikTok, but when I worked at a nursing home, we wanted to do television ads. And I called in, there were a number of main cable providers. And I called in a sales rep from each one, and they all said the same thing. The first guy I thought was pulling my leg, but they said to advertise, I won't bother you with the names, on children's television stations. And I said, I'm advertising a nursing home. They said, exactly. The children will see the ad where a parent is solving a grandparent's problem from the child's perspective. And then they'll say, Mommy, you know, Grandma, you have this issue with Grandma. I just saw an ad. And the children will do the legwork. So maybe it would be the same on TikTok. I don't know. That,
Maybe.
but it's an example, perhaps, of different cultures. I'm going to now attempt, but I will succeed because I am stubborn, to share your contact information so that our viewers will know how to contact you. And sorry for the delay. I'm trying to get us to match
Perfectly fine.
here. Here we go. And I have one final question for you. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
So I would love it if you could ask me about my charity just for 30 seconds. And
You can
if you
take
had
10
asked me,
minutes. Go ahead. Talk
cool.
about your charity.
Great. So I got into business to help nature. I won't bore you with the backstory, but I've built a bunch of companies to help plant native forests and protect our existing biodiversity. And in my business, my real strength is content marketing. And so we have a charity called Conservation Amplified, conservationamplified.org. And we use content marketing to help tell the stories of people that are helping nature. Uh, in all over the world, particularly in New Zealand, the people that give their time to help the environment are quite often so busy in their fulfillment, in their, as we were talking about, they're not doing much marketing or sales. And so there's a lot of people out there who are doing really amazing stuff in the community and they're just not known about. Here in our community in Rotorua in New Zealand, there's 20 plus groups and most doing crazy amounts of work to help our biodiversity, and most locals don't even know they exist, even if they're right next door to the group. So we have a podcast called People Helping Nature, and on that podcast, we interview people that are helping nature to share their stories, to amplify their impact, and to help make conservation mainstream. Because whilst I absolutely love business and I really love helping people to grow their business, it's the way of allocating resources in this world. We need a good environmental foundation to live from, because that's really important for a lot of reasons. And so, yeah, basically, we use our content marketing skills to help people. Um, I'm not saying everybody has to become a greenie, not by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're listening to this and you think, I wonder what the environmental space is like in New Zealand, we've got a really cool podcast. And if you're wondering how would Callum use content marketing in a different context that might help me to learn about growing my business, it's there. But if you're just running a bit, sorry, just is the wrong word. If you're running a business, small business is the backbone of our economy. If you're running a business and you're thinking, I need help with growth, I don't even know if I'm at the right stage to grow my business, we do have a free diagnosis, which is what you've got on screen. And I'm happy to have a quick chat. If you're not ready to grow your business with digital marketing, even though my job is to sell digital marketing, coaching, and services, I'll be the first one to say, don't do marketing now. Set these things up and then think about it, because I believe that it's really important to do right by people at the outset, because that creates lasting relationships. So that's a bit of a spiel, but that
Oh,
would be
that's
my
okay.
final comments.
Callum, I've enjoyed this interview immensely. I thank you. You've provided a great deal of information. I'm sure our viewers appreciate it as much as I do. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bruce. It's been great chatting with you. You've got some really winning questions there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.